Hey everybody, Alex from SCADA Forge here. In this video, we're going to look at tag history using the Easy Chart in the Vision module. So to get started, let's create a new window. Call it Easy Chart. Make this a little bigger. And we're going to come over to our component palette and find Easy Chart under the Charts heading. And we'll click and drag that over to our window and make that a little bigger. Now we'll see here this comes with a date time selector already at the bottom, meaning it's in historical mode. We can also change it to real-time mode here with the chart mode, and that will give us a real-time view with the last X number of minutes or hours displayed. And we could also do manual, which we'd have to tie into some scripting to get that to come across. Then we have a bunch of other properties here that we can use for the behavior of the Easy Chart. We can have our start date and end date if we want to filter anything with a where clause, and then general appearance and layout, especially if we want to show the legend for what tags are shown on our Easy Chart. We'll put that on here. We don't have any tags yet, so we're not seeing anything, but that'll populate once we add something. And then we can show some other buttons, handle pen styles, and handle our historical range here. And then show tag history resolution, allow interpolation, and a bunch of other properties. And then we down here can configure our pens, whether we want to look at pens from a database, from tags, if we want to do calculations, or if we want to set up different axes or subplots. Generally, I leave most of this by default and just do everything on the Easy Chart itself. If you right-click and go to Customizers, you'll see the Easy Chart Customizer. If we click on that, it brings up a window that exposes a lot of the properties over here for us to manage on the trend. First, the main tab that opens is Pens. So a pen is any line that's going to be drawn on the Easy Chart. Typically, that will come from tag history. You can also do database or calculate it if needed, but most times it's just reading tag history out of the historian module. We can also do axes. So if we want to have multiple y-axes or y-axes on the left and right to indicate different values, depending on, let's say we have a value that ranges from 0 to 1,000 and another one that ranges from 0 to 100. If we show those on the same axis, they'll generally be, one will be down in the bottom 10% and the other will be up towards the top. In that case, we may want to make the left y-axis 0 to 1,000 and the right y-axis 0 to 100, so the data looks a little better. We can also do subplots. Right now we just have one plot. If we do subplots, we'll get multiple trend windows here in the Easy Chart, and then dynamic groups allow us to do some different pen groups dynamically. Dig into the documentation if you want to learn more about that. So first, we'll take a look at pens, and we'll add a couple pens here, and then we'll build out some additional functionality through the other tabs as we're going. To add a pen, we click the plus button here on the right to add a pen. That brings up a pen pop-up here that we can use. And we can give it a name, select the color, what style we want to look at, if it's enabled or hidden, if it's selectable from the legend, which axis it goes to, which subplot and group it's part of, and then some other properties, including the tag path. So for this, let's go to Insert Tag. This is going to pull up our tag history provider, and we have a handful of tags configured within there for compressor 1 and compressor 2. So let's first take a look at compressor 1 motor amps. We'll hit OK, and we'll see that that populates our tag path. We can change our aggregation mode, which will change how our value is displayed. It defaults to min and max. typically just use default has worked pretty well. Sometimes an average or closest value also works, depending on how much data you're looking at, how quickly it's captured, and what the variation is of it. We'll just leave it as min and max for now. And we will call it compressor 1 motor amps. We'll hit OK. And now we see that that pen is listed here, and it'll show up in blue. So if we were to hit OK, we will see our legend populates here on the left, because that's what we had selected in the properties. That gives us a label here to show compressor 1 motor amps is in blue, and this is our actual data point that we're looking at. So we can go into play mode, and if we wanted to, say, scoot back in time a little bit, we can do that. If we instead want to go into real time, we can grab chart mode, make that real time, and we'll look at the last 5 minutes, and you'll see that that's updating a 5-minute window. As data gets added to the list, it'll get added here on the right, and we can see what we're looking at there. If, say, we want to look at the last hour, we can pull that up, and that'll give us an hour window that will populate and scroll a little bit slower. So now let's go and add a second tag. Go back to our Easy Chart Customizer. Let's say we'll go back to compressor 1. Let's say we want to look at percent loaded as well. Give that a name and hit OK. And now that populates. When we hit OK, we'll see both those tags populate now. Now for a little bit more advanced functionality, let's first show multiple subplots. So in this case, we go to the subplots tab. We want to add a subplot here by clicking the plus button. That'll give us plot 2. Then we can go back to our pens. We can select the second pen that we added. We can click the edit button, and we can make subplot 2 what it's tied to here with the subplot property. We can hit OK and OK, and now that gives us 2 plots here. So in this case, maybe say we want to do compressor 1 on top and compressor 2 on the bottom. We can do multiple subplots, one for each compressor. We can go back to Easy Chart Customizer, and let's just put that back to subplot of 1 so they're on the same. We can also go to axes, and again we can add another axis. Let's call this secondary axis. We'll give it a label of percent loaded, and let's take off auto range, and let's give it a value of, say, 50 to 200, just so it looks a little different. Auto range will auto scale the y-axis based on the data that it's displaying, so that the data is contained within the axis. If we turn that off, we can automatically, or we can manually describe the bounds of what we want that axis to show. So we can hit OK there. Then we can go to pens. We can edit that second pen, and we can change the axis property here to secondary axis. Then we can hit OK. And since we changed the subplot back, we'll go back to a single plot here. Then we'll see on the right, we have our secondary axis with its label of percent loaded, scaled from 50 to 200. And you'll see at the bottom, I guess we had values below 50 at some point because it's cutting those off down here. But that gives you multiple axes that you can use as well. So now we can go back to Easy Chart Customizer. Let's just put those back on the same. And then we can hit OK. Then another thing we can do, we can also go into play mode. We can see, we can maximize this by hiding the legend. We can send this to print if we want, or we can save the data to an Excel file using these buttons here on the right. We can also right-click on the chart itself, and we can get different modes. We can change the background color if we want. We can save this, and that will give us a PNG export that we can look at. We can print that. We can zoom in on axes, zoom out on axes. We can re-auto range if we need to, or we can reset axes. Now, a lot of the power comes in the mode operation here. We can go to zoom, pan, we can mark, and we can put a mark on there to get a visualization of values at a given point in time. And then if we were to print this to a PNG, we'll get to see some data that's on there. We can also, this is pretty powerful, go to X-Trace, and we can click anywhere on the chart, and that will give us a line at a particular day and point in time, shown here on the bottom. And then along that line, it will show us the value of all of the pens on the chart. In this case, we have our motor amps, percent loaded, and the value they are at that point in time. If we come over here, we'll see that they also order themselves based on what values are higher or lower. And then if we come to say here, you'll see that they swap with compressor 1 motor amps on the top and percent loaded on the bottom. So that gives you a lot of flexibility. And then since we have user selectable enabled, we can deselect one of these pens over here, and it will hide it. And then if we reselect it here and hit apply, it will come back, and we can take the other one off. And that can be useful if you have a bunch of predefined pens on here that maybe the operator wants to deselect some of them to get a little bit better look at some of the data. So that's the basic easy chart. And then we'll see down here, now that we have tag pens configured, we can see that data down here at the chart configuration table. This is where if we wanted to go into getting into templates and indirection and things, we can come down here and use a cell update binding, and we can map our tag path and make it dynamic, pass in property values and things similar to the template video where we passed in the tower number. You know, we could pass in a different compressor number down here and load up data for the other compressor. We'll save that for some more advanced videos, but that does exist and is pretty straightforward to figure out with the documentation. The other interesting component is if we go to here, we'll create a window called Ad Hoc Trend. If we go to the Ignition Exchange, you can search for Vision Ad Hoc Trend Chart, and you can download this template. And I've already imported it into the project here as a template. And that, we'll bring that across. Make our window a little bigger. Select the root container. There we go. What this does is this basically gives you a fully functional like trend screen out of the box. If we go into play mode, so we can find our tags, then we can click and drag onto the chart here in the middle. That will give us a list of pens down here at the bottom. Let's say we want to change that to a blue color. We can edit a lot of the pen features here. This exposes things like X-Trace, Zoom, things on the right-click menu with buttons. It also gives us the save. We can also save or we can save this, like using the Save Graph button. We can also save our configuration, and we could, let's say, a plant manager wants to pull up certain trends and an operator wants to pull up different ones. They could configure their trends here on this ad hoc trend chart and save those and then load those up once they're using the system pretty easily. And this is a totally free resource you can get on the Ignition Exchange, and that's definitely pretty powerful. So that gives you a basic overview of the Easy Chart functionality in Ignition. Thank you for watching.